Welcome to the fish tank. Presidential candidates are falling over. The DNC is ticked off. Libertarians are pushing forward their geopolitical knowledge. And what's the millennial strategy for Trump? That's right, I'm wheeling out a millennial voter. Heaven help us all. But first, what is going on with Hillary and how is the DNC reacting to a spot of pneumonia? For this and more, please welcome Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist David Schuster. David, thanks for joining me.
Lindsay, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
What are you hearing from the DNC specifically about Hillary's campaign right now?
Well, the DNC was totally caught off guard on Sunday when when Hillary Clinton, of course, fainted and the video was everywhere. And then at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there was the announcement from Hillary's doctor that she had pneumonia. This was something that it now turns out Hillary Clinton's senior staff knew about on Friday when the doctor made the diagnosis. They hadn't told anybody. So for several hours yesterday, there was complete chaos among DNC committeemen, delegates, people wondering, is there another shoe to drop? Is this going to be worse? There is still some incredible suspicions among members of the DNC that maybe there is more. And what it did is it prompted a whole round of discussions and emails and phone calls, people burning up the lines talking about what do we do if Hillary Clinton actually drops out of the race? Who would we select? And the general consensus from people who've been part of these conversations is that they would vote to turn to Joe Biden. But this has prompted a lot of people to look at the actual bylaws and rules at the DNC to try to figure out how would this process work. Well,
you and I both know she probably does not want to unclench those talons into the idea of taking the presidency. But do you think, especially from a journalist point of view, do you think her campaign didn't want to feed into more of the hype around her health? Do you think that was why they did this? I mean, the DNC's had a problem with trusting the Clinton campaign for some time.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, they were convinced, I suppose, the Clinton campaign was convinced that if they released this when the doctor made the announcement on Friday, that it would essentially validate some of the Republican conspiracy theories that have been out there. But what ended up happening is that by trying to hide it, the Clinton campaign made it all that much worse, because now there's no way to avoid questions about Hillary Clinton's health and calls that she release all of her medical records. And oh, by the way, by hiding it for 3 days, she has infuriated the very party that is supposed to be helping her talk her way through this. There are members of the Democratic National Committee who simply now, they didn't have a lot of trust for Hillary Clinton before. They don't have much trust left now, and they're left in the dark about what's going to happen next and how Hillary Clinton is going to deal with this. The campaign, for example, keeps saying, oh, Hillary Clinton will be back on the campaign trail in 2 or 3 days. There are a lot of people at the DNC who don't believe that and are very fearful about whether Hillary Clinton is going to be ready for the debate, the first presidential debate, 2 weeks from tonight.
What are your sources telling you about Bernie Sanders and his people's reaction to this?
Well, they are scrambling to try to figure out how they would play in this if this scenario happens where Hillary Clinton would withdraw. And we should make it very clear, according to the bylaws, Hillary Clinton gets to decide whether or not she continues with this campaign. Even if she's on death's doorstep, she can conceivably stay in. What the Sanders people are doing is they're trying to look at the specific bylaws, and they are pointing to some of the language that Bernie Sanders declared on the floor of the convention when he said that the rules would be suspended and therefore he's supporting Hillary Clinton. There are some Sanders supporters who suggest that based on that language, some of the DNC bylaws are different and that the nomination would have to go to Bernie Sanders if, in fact, Hillary Clinton should withdraw. There are other people at the DNC who say, no, it's not that clear. This would be the committee laws in which you have a vote with the executive committee, and by all indications, Joe Biden would win that vote. But behind the scenes, there is a furious effort by Bernie Sanders supporters, by some members of the DNC to try to figure this out. The Bernie Sanders people are lobbying very hard and saying, look, you've got to be kidding if you're going to discount Bernie Sanders under this nightmare scenario. And there are a lot of fears among all kinds of people across the Democratic Party about how this might play out.
Exactly. Bernie Sanders delegates possibly up in arms in the coming days. David Schuster in New York, thank you very much for joining me on this.
You're welcome, Lindsay.
Well, let's go third party now. The recovery of Gary Johnson from last week, the what is Aleppo comment. The debates are hard upon us now, and we got to deal with libertarians still trying to get up on that debate stage. Please welcome Kevin McCormick, former presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. We are 2 weeks from the debates, 50 days to the elections. What are you going to do if you can't get on that stage?
Well, we'll continue to spread the message, and I know that the Johnson campaign has openly said that they plan on live streaming themselves and answering the debate questions online for everyone to see if they happen to be excluded. But we still believe that they're going to be included in the debates.
So it's going to go step by step. They're going to take all of the questions that were asked at the debates and then offer their own sort of
their own take. And so the American public, those that are interested, will be able to see online the voice of the Libertarian Party.
Good. So they're going to at least try to get the voice out there. Now let's talk about Donald Trump and third parties in the debates. Back in 2000, he said, it's disgraceful that third-party candidates are systematically excluded from the debates. I'm not surprised that the two-party political establishment wants to keep the American people from having a third choice. It's amazing they can get away with it. Take a listen to what he said on Larry King on this channel just days ago.
Did you want him on the debate or not?
No, I don't. I'd rather be Hillary and myself because we're the only two with a chance of winning.
All right, the choice there is that, the chance of winning, but still, doesn't the ability of the American people to hear a voice count more?
Yes, it does, and it's classic. Once you are a part of the established party, then all of a sudden those things he was saying back in 2000 when he was running maybe under the reform ticket. He doesn't have those beliefs anymore, and it goes back to Johnson says, the worst thing you can be is a hypocrite. And unfortunately, we're dealing with two hypocrites, Clinton and Trump, running today. Okay, so what is the rebuttal, though, if you don't get onto that debate stage? You're going to sneak in and get arrested, a la Jill Stein. God bless her, she's good at that. What are you going to do? What are the Libertarians going to do? We're going to continue to get our message out there on social media and through the advertising. The Johnson campaign just recently started their media blast with their commercials on TV. Pretty good commercials, I got to add. A lot of positive comments on those. Pretty well done. Okay, what is it with the Libertarians not wanting to take federal money for a convention? I mean, come on. I know you all don't like federal money, but that's just not pragmatic, is it? No, and I agree. I mean, there's some in the Libertarian Party, they have their different views and are very principled, but it's like, you got to play by the rules of the game, and if you want to win the game, you got to play by the rules, and, they stack enough rules against us that we don't need to penalize ourselves on top of that. Okay, let's talk about roads. Are you for privatized roads? Oh, good old roads. Come on, no driver's licenses, no government roads. What do you think? Let's be realistic that we have a lot of change, and it's time just to start getting back our personal liberties and our freedoms in this country because they've been under attack for so long. And let's, keep ourselves focused on those instead of the outliers that some people like to keep pointing to about the privatize everything. Yeah, exactly. I got to ask it. Some people are saying, why not Bill Weld? Two-term Massachusetts governor. Why not Bill Weld? Bill had the opportunity if he wanted to run for president. He could have, but Johnson ran for the ticket, and Johnson went out there and grabbed Weld as his VP. I think it was a great choice. Johnson had seen the future and understood that Weld would secure the ticket, and now the reality is the Libertarian Party has the most qualified ticket of any of the tickets out there. Gary Johnson have a nice guy problem? I mean, you and I both know, God bless Gary, he's a nice guy. It's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Gary is a nice guy, and he's honest to a fault. But I think nowadays in politics, it's a nice change of perspective. They say after the Aleppo gaffe, the way I look at it is a security briefing can easily solve that. But a security briefing isn't going to solve character flaws in the other character. Well, not only that, you're only going to get the security briefing if you get on the debate stage and make it into the general election. Well, that's the thing that people don't realize as well is Johnson's not getting security briefings by the government while the Democratic and Republican candidates are. He's got the CIA fact book online just like the rest of us. Let's talk about the Terminator. Recent tweet by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Take a look. We all benefit when we open the conversation instead of closing it. I hope Governor Johnson and Weld are allowed to debate. Is this enough of an endorsement? I mean, it is the Arnold after all, but Gary Johnson is getting massive newspaper endorsements at a surprising rate. Yes, he's had 2 major newspapers in the last week to Donald's 0. And it's only increasing. And 76% of Americans in a recent poll said they want to hear the third party on the stage. Do you think they just want to see if Gary will fail? I think there are some people that want to see. It'd be more interesting to see what happens if Gary does fail. But the reality is Gary right now is representing 10 to 20 million Americans in their choice. And they have a right to have their voice heard on stage and find out if that is the correct candidate for them. Eliminating their choice is not democracy. You think that the polls are on purpose skewing results purposefully away from Johnson? It's a little tough to say that the polls aren't intentionally being biased against Johnson when you saw the recent CNN poll that had to eliminate 18 to 34-year-olds completely because of sampling errors, when that is the group that is polling the strongest for Johnson.
Okay, Gary is considered a very nice guy, pretty soft-spoken. He, screwed up on Aleppo, maybe had a brain freeze, but let's say all of this stacks against him, and for a variety of other reasons, too, to be fair, and he doesn't get on the debate stage. How are the Libertarians going to hit back legitimately so that this doesn't happen again? I mean, 2012, we saw the problems. Now we see the problems. How are you going to change?
I don't think it's necessarily the Libertarians have to change. This is a great year, and we're getting our word out there. The world is changing in how people consume media. It's being consumed more over social media. I think there is no mistake that we are doing so well with people under 40 because they are finding their news outside of the major media outlets where the major media refuses to cover us.
Ding, 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 right here. Thank you very much for joining me today, Kevin McCormick, former presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Well, Monday motivation, everybody. It's time for you to revolt against the Commission on Presidential Debates. Just take a look at this. This is a reason why. This poll took a sample population of 642 people. The margin of error in the result is 4.5 points. So Clinton has 46 points, Trump 41, Johnson 9, Stein 2. So with a nearly 5% margin of error, Clinton is ahead 5 points. This is a national poll. Now you do the math. That 5 points would have put Johnson, if they all went for him, just hypothetically, at 14%. Keep in mind, the man needs 15% in 5 national polls for the Commission on Presidential Debates to allow him to debate. One of those pollsters, ABC News. The source of this one, ABC News and the Washington Post. And that, my friends, is how third parties are kept ever so slightly, inch by inch, out of the debates. All right. That's all from the Fish Tank today. Have a good one.